Fun fact, there are 138 appearances of wine in the Mishnah. I don't how many I know there's like 20 plus references of beer or shechar in the Tanakh in the Old Testament. Professor Dunn, how many are there of wine in the Tanakh? Published some
141. 141.
141 in the Tanakh. Okay, 141 Tanakh and 138 in the Mishnah. Top five tractates with most appearances of wine, but this will tell us something. So it's not just a random data piece. So here's the top five. The top so the five are Avodah Zarah, Trumot, Nidarim, Nazir, and Brachot. So I know they're all Hebrew words, but the one that's far and away more than any other tractate is Avodah Zarah, and that really talks about idolatrous practices. And what the rabbis in particular are quite interested in, although wine gets mentioned like the second or third chapter, appears really prominently in the back half of the fourth and throughout the fifth chapter of Avodah Zarah, where it's really concerned about Gentiles getting in touch with wine and libating it. And so that's like it's not a hidden concern. Like it's just super obvious. It's like it's super overt. They're like, it's not like we're kind of worried that these Gentiles will libate. They're just worried like, oh my God, we turned our head and they could have libated that random flask of wine over you. And so they're worried about this. Oh, these Roman soldiers are around. They must have libated. There's no question. Those are off limits. We just, so that is why that tractate has it appearing as many. It's 29. There's 29 appearances. The next closest tractate is 19. So that tells you that this is just hugely a huge concern because it is something with which to be libated. And obviously, the rabbis like they talk about libations in the temple, so that's important. It's something that's sacred, but here it's being inverted, really, for quite opposite purposes. The next one is true moat, and that has to do with really donations from agriculture. So when you're harvesting, and one of the products that one harvests are grapes, and so there's a certain amount that needs to be tithed and really given into. It's a lot more complicated than just simply a tithe. There's like a multiplicity of tiers of tithing, but they were concerned like for the regular people, for the farmers who are harvesting their grapes, where does it need to go and what happens? Also, what happens if someone forgets or something gets mixed in? The third one is Nidarim, which is pledges, like vows, like I vow not to drink wine for a few days or whatever it is, which leads us into number four, which is Nazir. So Nazir, as people may remember from chapter 6 in the book of Numbers, is the Nazarite. And so someone who is it like how much are they pledging off the wine? What if they have a little bit of wine? How much, like, what are the parameters exactly of the Nazarite with regards to wine? And number five is brachot, which is blessings. So this has to do with blessings, and not just simply. It's funny because they talk about blessings in different ways. So one is simply blessing over wine. There's one rabbi, his name is Rabbi Eliezer. He says, if you don't dilute it, is it even wine? You might as well just be having grapes, right? So he talks about because this is an elevated way, otherwise it's barbarous. But there's a whole section, I think it's chapter 5, that talks about meals. So how does wine appear at meals? What's the order? What if there are certain other things taking place? And so then there's a whole bunch of debates, especially between a couple of really significant academies about the placement of wine and blessings. So it's a lot of mealtime stuff. And well, what happens at mealtimes? Well, drinking. So that's why it's the fifth most appearing, the tractate in which appears the fifth most occurrences.